Hello, Maverick fans. Welcome to another episode of the Mavpuckcast. I am Jon, here with our special guest today, Jason.
I'm back, friends.
Yeah, Jason, it is great to have you back. As we talked about a few episodes ago, Jason's daughter, Lexi, plays hockey with an outfit out of Kansas City. His daughter Maddie is involved with multiple show choirs here in Omaha. So it has been a crazy first part of 2024 for you guys.
Yeah, they've really packed us into the start of the year, but the good news is that's kind of all letting up, and we can focus back on Omaha hockey and the Mavpuck family.
Yes, it's great to have you back, Jason. Also, I just want to thank Bridget, of course, for filling in the last month.
Absolutely.
That was very nice of her to do because
I super appreciate her taking the bullet for me for those like 4 weeks we said, right?
Yeah, that was crazy. Four weekends in a row, but here we are. And we've got some exciting hockey to talk about that took place in Kalamazoo, Michigan against the Western Michigan Broncos. But before we talk about that, we've got to talk about our official merchandise sponsor for the Mavpuckcast this season, Lawler's Custom Sportswear. You know, we're getting down to the nitty gritty of the season. We've got a bye week coming up, but we've got the final 3 weekends of the regular season coming up for the UNO hockey program. 2 of those series, one against Colorado College and the other against North Dakota to cap the season, are going to be at Baxter Arena. So, Jason, folks might want to get some new UNO hockey gear here for the final stretch run. And if you'd like to check out any of the merchandise, check out Lawler's brick and mortar store on 84th Street at the Next Home Series. You can certainly check out Lawler's booth at Baxter Arena, or any time of day, check out Lawler's merchandise at lawlerscustom.com. But we've got to turn to our series up at Western Michigan. We knew going in that this was going to be a tough series. UNO was coming off couple of really good series, a great road swing up at St. Cloud State, and then UNO's first conference sweep of the season at Baxter Arena against Minnesota Duluth last weekend. But we were headed up to the rough and tumble confines of Lawson Arena at Western Michigan. Bridget and I have been up there several times. We took a couple of bus trips up there. Fun old school barn built in 1974. Boy, interesting game on Friday night. And 5:22 into the first period, Western's Hugh Larkin puts the Broncos up 1-0. Jason, Omaha challenged that goal for offsides.
They did, and it took them a while to review it, which I thought was odd because, you know, unlike when there's video feeds from Omaha, as I've learned over the past 4 weeks, they actually showed replays on NCHC TV. I mean, I knew it was close going in, but then they started showing the replays, and I'm like, that is clearly offsides. But they, I don't know where they were looking, honestly. Like, I really don't know, because, I mean, it seemed pretty obviously offsides to me.
Yeah, it definitely seemed offsides to me as well. So very interesting. UNO ultimately lost the challenge, and Coach Gabinet lost his timeout. And one interesting note I learned in the club lounge at Baxter Arena, there is a TV that is dedicated to all of those replays that the rest of us don't get to see in the arena at Baxter Arena. So I thought you might find that interesting. Yeah. So WMU is up 1-0. And then about 4 minutes later, Western Michigan's Luke Granger, one of their Hobie Baker candidates, puts the Broncos up 2-0. Western Michigan is up 2-0 after one period. What did you think of UNO's chances at that point, Jason?
I didn't think we had very good chances. I didn't think we played very well in that first period. Like, we were, we were level with them in shots. We had opportunities, but it just seemed like everything was coming off of, broken plays, missed reads, things like that by Western Michigan more than it was us generating and creating opportunities. And that's really hard because you can't rely on that, right? Like if you're playing a good game, if you're creating opportunities and challenging pucks and staying high on your attack, things like that, you can kind of anticipate generating some opportunities as the game goes along, but that wasn't the case. We were relying pretty heavily on mistakes by Western Michigan to kind of start our cycles and get us going in the offensive zone. And I just I didn't think Western Michigan was going to hold to that. I thought they were going to make adjustments in the intermission, and we'd see a different club coming out in the second, and we really did. Western Michigan was very dominant in the second period. UNO was still kind of chasing everything.
Yeah, second period, only one goal was scored in the second. It was a tipped shot from the point by Sam Colangelo for Western at the midpoint of that period. Western Michigan was up 3-0 after two, so not a good position for UNO to be in on the road after the second frame at Lawson Arena. Third period, though, UNO began its attempted comeback early in that third frame. 37 seconds in, Tanner Ludke, the shot caromed around a bit, but ultimately went past Western's Camro. UNO narrowed the lead to 3-1, but about 3.5 minutes later, Western's Alex Bump regains the 3-goal lead for the Broncos. It's 4-1 Western. About 3:05 left in regulation, Jason. Jesse Lansdale had what we thought was going to be UNO's second goal. The goal was initially reviewed to see if it crossed the goal line, which it did, but then it was reviewed again for goaltender interference, and the goal was ultimately called back.
Yeah, and you think back to the review in the first period, it makes me wonder if, there's weird rules about what they can look at and what they can make a decision on when they go into those reviews. And this was one of those, like when they went into the review box, they specifically said that they were going in to review whether or not the puck crossed the line, which means as long as they were taking in that box, the only thing they could come out of that review and say, at least according to the rules, are did it cross the line or did it not? And so my guess is that they were looking at it and saying like, oh man, we're gonna get this. They're gonna challenge this. Let's just make the determination now if we think that that's goaltender interference, because then we can go over to the coach and say the puck crossed the line. I can tell you right now, we looked at it. I don't think there's going to be goaltender interference. If you want to use your challenge, you can. But in this case, I think they kind of looked at it and said, yeah, he absolutely pushed the pad and not the puck. That was the determination that I heard, was that was what the refs looked at. Because the rule is like you can push the puck into the pad into the goal, but you cannot push the goalie's pad into the goal and then the puck crosses the line. And so, my guess is that that's kind of what they were looking at. It makes me wonder, going back to the first one though, I was looking at the guy that's right by the linesman, that's kind of on that far side of where they have the cameras on the first goal that got called back. I'm curious if they thought it was a different player, and I had mentioned this to the family when we were watching it. Like, there's another player who's kind of coming out of the zone, and he does just like a little button hook to get back in. And I wonder if all of their focus was on whether or not he got out to come back in, and they never looked at the guy that was clearly offsides at the top of the play.
Right. Yeah, completely agreed. I wondered the same thing. So yeah, very, very interesting, very, very interesting review scenarios that went on during this game. UNO ultimately goes on to lose the game 6-1, a tough start. As we know, Western Michigan is known for having those talented and productive forwards. We've talked over the past several seasons, guys like Ethan Frank, Ryan McAllister, Jason Pullen, just a lot of really talented forwards on that team. So going
But to
into
that
this,
point, though, John,
oh
we never
yeah,
really made it hard on him. We let them put 41 shots on goal. I mean, you can't go into a road game in a conference like ours and say we're going to be successful if we allow 41, shots on goal. We got outshot 14 to I think it was like 14-2 or 14-4, something like that in the second period. I mean, it's just like you gotta give yourself a chance, and you're not giving yourself a chance if your defense isn't limiting opportunities, if you're not selling out and blocking shots. If you're not generating offense, and the best defense is a good offense. We control the puck in our zone, and it's an entirely different game. And we just could really never do that. And I'm sure that the coaches looked at it and said, like, you have to make adjustments, but this lose Friday, win Saturday things, it makes it it makes it very difficult to climb conference standings. When you're looking at that, and when you're playing against teams like Denver and Western Michigan that are, very talented scoring teams, you really have to look at that number and say, we've got to cut those shots in half. We need to have them in the 20s, not the 40s.
So going into the Saturday night game, we were hoping that we could salvage the splits. 4:24 into the first, Western's Luke Granger puts the Broncos up 1-0. How are you feeling early on in that period, Jason?
Not great, not bad kind of thing. It seemed like it was a little bit of a mediocre kind of thing early on. We were playing better, but not great. It's that kind of middle set of the first period that we really started to kind of find our game. We started jumping some of their exits. And I don't know if that was just an adjustment that the team made, that we wanted to give our forwards a little bit more freedom to step into those lanes and try to generate those, knowing that you're going to be a little exposed if you don't get it. But that seemed to really work for us in that first period, and certainly helped kind of, I don't want to say like turn the tides, but like give us some momentum, some signs of life that we really didn't have on Friday.
Yeah, 8:47 into that period, Matt Miller ties it up for UNO on the power play. Game tied 1-1. Then later in the latter half of that first period, Western's Hillebrand scores on a breakaway, puts the Broncos up 2-1. 2-1 Western after the first period. But like you said, we felt a little bit better about UNO's chances at that point compared to the same point on Friday night. 2-1 going into that third period. About midway through the third, our captain Nolan Sullivan ties it up for UNO on the power play. Pure effort goal by Sully in front of the crease.
Yeah, and that's where him and Miller both, like, that's kind of where their game relies. They're good in those grindy areas. They do a great job in front of the net on the power play. Both of those goals being power play goals, like that's where we've seen the most success over the season on the power play, is when those guys going to get traffic in front, find a way to kind of take the goalie's eyes away. And our defense does a better job of getting shots through, or we move low forwards through into the slot, because those are the types of things that kind of open stuff up. And you get a good shot on goal and a loose puck in a danger area, and a guy like Sullivan, guys like Miller, like those are the guys that in those areas can just bury those pucks.
Absolutely right. The game is tied 2-2 after three. UNO held Western's power play, which is ranked 13th in the nation coming into this series, scoreless on 5 attempts during the game, including 2 5-on-3 power play attempts. So once again, Jason, UNO goes to the 5-minute 3-on-3 overtime, a familiar place for the Mavericks, and they've had a lot of success in that. And at the midway point of that 5-minute OT, UNO Zach Erdahl, who had a nice weekend, gets the game-winning goal for UNO. The Mavs win 3-2 in overtime, and UNO leads the NCAA in most OT wins. They are 7-1 in OT this season. God, Jason and I wish that some of those games they could have gotten it done in regulation.
Well, yeah, especially now, if you're not winning in regulation, it's really hard, like I said, to kind of climb up the standings, because you're chasing a team like Western Michigan. You're a few points behind them. Yeah, you got 2 points, but you gave them one. And if you keep giving away points to teams, like especially teams that are ahead of you, you're never going to catch them. Like, you're just not. And so we really need to find a way to get it done in regulation. But it's good for them. Like, we're a team that just doesn't back down, and it's fun, it's exciting as a fan, right? Like boy, when he scored, when Zach comes around and then kind of curls around and then fires that puck, right into the bar, and you're just like, that was awesome. And but it's like then you get into something like this and you start going, oh man, we really needed to find that goal in the third and capitalize on another power play, something, something somewhere, like get one of those pucks to go in, something to get us away with a 3-2 lead in regulation instead of a 3-2 win in overtime. So
Absolutely. It's been part of the story for UNO this season, but like you said, they don't give up. And the 3-on-3 overtime is always fun and exciting to watch. So we've got to talk about our players of the week. Jason, who did you like as your player of the week in the series up at Kalamazoo against Western Michigan?
I don't know. Like it was hard because I think there's a lot of guys that had a really good Saturday, but didn't really notice them a ton on Friday. Um, Bremer's one that we've talked about before. Big fan of his game. Love the way he plays. He was a little too quiet on Friday for me, but he had a great game on Saturday. So it's hard for me sometimes because like I always want to find the guys that have complete weekends and not just one game. Um, so I'm going to go back to our captain Nolan Sullivan. I know it's been talked the last few games about his performance on faceoffs and things, and I think sometimes that gets overlooked by fans is what that does for the team, even when he's not on the score sheet. And so I was happy to see him get a power play goal, yeah, get on the sheet there. But just he's one of those, him and Matt Miller, like we talked about before, like those are two very reliable guys. They play the same way every game. You can count on them to play this way. They know what their roles are, they know what their jobs are, and they do a good job of it. Um, so yeah, I'll pick Sullivan this week. So
Thanks.
who's on your list?
Well, I was going to pick Sullivan. So, Jason, totally, but I completely agree with that pick. Of course, he had that key goal in the Saturday victory against Western Michigan. He's tallied points in the last three series. He has 4 goals, 5 assists this season. Certainly, from point production, is not a statistical giant for UNO. We've talked about his importance on faceoffs, and it's just great to see the grizzled veterans on this team having success down the stretch. So, no, Nolan, great pick. My other choice that I was going to pick, in case you picked Nolan Sullivan, was forward Zach Erdahl, who I have picked before. He had the game-winning goal in OT on Saturday night. 8 goals and 5 assists this season, transferring in from Wisconsin. 7 of those 13 points have come since January 1st. And I've been really impressed with Zach Erdahl this season, Jason.
A lot of the guys that we've had that we got out of the portal have done pretty well for us. Um,
Absolutely. You look at a guy, yeah, you look at a guy like Kevin Conley was one of the first who really had a lot of success for UNO.
yeah, and that's it's a new thing, right? Like with coaches and there's some coaches that I think just maybe out of nostalgia, the grizzly old vets kind of things, like they just don't really rely on the transfer portal, very well. There's other people who like Gabnet who seem to kind of look at it as like this is the way we're gonna get things done, and we're gonna lose players out of it, so we always got to be prepared to kind of go out and grab some players. Seth Isley like has been great for us. So yeah, so it's good to have them kind of come in with some fresh blood. The challenge for us, you and me, the pundits, and even the fans and the trolls that are gonna bombard the comment section, right? Like the challenge is like, what do you do next year, kind of thing, because you're bringing in a lot of these guys that this is their only year of eligibility, and so do they stick around? They can't stick around, so they're going to leave, and some of these other guys that you bring in as sophomores and juniors and stuff, there's always that question of do they stick around too? So they already bailed on one team, or they can bail on another. There's no rules against it. So it's hard to kind of plan out when you're seeing that, but he has been a great addition for UNO this year for sure.
He has a junior this season, and like you said, it's going to be interesting to see if he stays around next season, or if he has minor league aspirations in his sights. So as always, it's an adventure with the transfer portal, so it'll be interesting to see. But we touched on this a few moments ago. Jason did. The NCHC standings, something that we've been talking about the last few weeks as we've been in this second half NCHC grind. The Mavs are currently sixth in the conference with 23 points. We are 4 points out of fourth place, and currently in fourth is Colorado College. But both CC and Minnesota Duluth have games this upcoming weekend. So this weekend, when we were playing at Western Michigan, St. Cloud was playing at Miami, and we were the only four conference teams playing this weekend. The other four had this weekend off, and then it'll reverse next weekend where UNO, Western, St. Cloud, and Miami have the weekend off, and then the other four teams are playing. So it's going to be interesting next weekend to see how things shake out and where UNO is left. Jason, what do you think about UNO currently sitting sixth in the NCHC standings right now? It's crazy to see Denver sitting there in fifth place.
Yeah, and you got to think that that's a team that's not going to stick around there very long. Especially with their point production is just insane. And yeah, so that's one of those teams that you look at in that kind of that middle group that we have right now that I'm just like, I don't know. My money's on them, kind of going on a run here at the end of the season, and they'll just be, I would not be surprised if they chase down St. Cloud for the 2 seed. I know St. Cloud's pretty close to North Dakota, but the goaltending's their big question. So that's kind of what you're looking for them as to where that goes. The rest of the teams, you're in a dogfight, and we get those teams. Like we get that series against Miami, but we got Colorado College coming. So it makes that an incredibly important series, and coming away with 6 points on that, we've got a far different outlook than if we split or God, if we get swept by them or something. So it's those types of things that you kind of look at. Colorado College could have a bad weekend this week and lose both their games, and suddenly we're looking at it going, oh man, they're ripe for the taking, and we could be in a really good position if we sweep. And so, yeah, like you said, a lot's going to determine, when we get our bye week here, and they have to play and see where they land.
Absolutely right. It's certainly an exciting race right there in the middle of the pack in the NCHC. Yeah, UNO's just got to keep plugging away, keep pulling together, hopefully get some more of those regulation wins like they did against Minnesota Duluth. So should be interesting to see the next couple weekends, and it should be exciting when Colorado College comes into Baxter Arena in 2 weeks. And that's what we're looking at next is our series preview of Colorado College coming into Baxter February 23rd and 24th. The games will start at 7:07 p.m. I just want to give a little notes right up front here that Friday game will be bobblehead night at Baxter Arena. So the first 1,000 fans will get a bobblehead, which Bridget and I do know what it is, but we don't have confirmation on it yet. So you'll just have to see what the bobblehead is going to be. But it
Not a Jason and Jon podcast bobblehead, though, right?
Yes, it's not a special edition Mavpuckcast bobblehead yet. We do not have giveaways like that yet, but sometime that might be fun to give away some of those during the season of the Mavpuckcast to people who like, comment, and share. And then Saturday, UNO Dance Marathon is doing something. I'll put that in quotes, but we're not sure what yet. So Be sure to follow Mavpuck on social media because we will have details on that. As we mentioned, talking about the NCHC standings, Colorado College had a bye week this week, as did half of the teams in the conference. As of this recording, CC is 16-9-1 overall. They are 10-6-0 in conference play and 9-3-0 on the road this season. Boy, a pretty good turnaround. You know, you were talking about how some coaches like to get players from the transfer portal, and some are still kind of old school and want to build it the old fashioned way, bringing in freshmen out of the junior ranks. And CC is one of those schools that has not relied on the transfer portal like a school like UNO.
Yeah, they kind of grow from within and they've stuck to their guys and their guys have stuck with them. And that's, you know, an important thing. If some of those guys start to leave and go elsewhere, that's when they kind of starts forcing your hand as to how you're going to do that. But, you know, I think they've done a good job about reading their room. And it seems like when you hear of a guy leave that they kind of just they had a freshman coming in that's going to fill that role, you know, no problem. It's a different dynamic certainly over there when you're dealing with that and homegrown talent versus, you know, bringing in 4 or 5 players a season.
Head coach Chris Mayotte is in his third season with CC. He is 38, 55, and 6. He was an assistant at Providence when UNO played them in the Frozen Four in 2015, and they went on to win the national championship that year. And he was also briefly an assistant at Michigan, a very talented young coach, up and coming. His assistant coach is a familiar name here in Omaha, Peter Menino, who had a brief stint here in Omaha. You know, he who must not be named. There's a lot of drama around that when he left UNO for Miami a few seasons ago. Players to watch. Certainly sophomore forward Noah Laba leads CC with 24 points, 15 goals, and 9 assists. He is a Rangers draft pick. Of course, sophomore goaltender Caden Mbarico has a 2.51 goals against average and a 0.914 save percentage. You look back at last season during his freshman campaign, he really was the difference for Colorado College in a lot of those games, and certainly is doing well this season, Jason.
He is, and if we're going to have success, we're going to need to make it, you know, a difficult night on him. The one thing that I would say, you know, puts Colorado College at a little bit of a risk because they've relied on him very heavily throughout the season. Backup goaltenders only played a couple games, so you know if they're going to put Mbarico in against us, like we need to pepper him with shots and get traffic in front and make it a miserable night and wear him down. And you know, I think a lot of teams are looking at like how long can he, you know, how long can he sustain this? But honestly, like if they put their backup in against us, it's not like, you know, at least statistically in those 2 games, it's not like he was, you know, going to be a problem for them or something. He has over a 900 save percentage as well. And so, you know, offensively, we need a lot of traffic, lots of movement, get pucks through. And honestly, their biggest Achilles heel has been their power play. So we need to take advantage of that. We need to have, you know, a good kill, generate some opportunities, get some momentum on those. And everything else, we're really close to them. 5-on-5, you know, our power play versus their penalty kill are very even statistically. So it's going to be a dogfight for the guys to get 6 points out of this weekend.
One more player I want to point out, sophomore forward Gleb Veremyev. He played in the USHL for the Lincoln Stars, so folks from these parts might remember him. He's second on the team in points with 9 goals and 9 assists. He tore an ACL during his freshman season, about midway through that season, but he's back to form this season. So they're doing better offensively this season than they did last season, and it's interesting to see where Chris Mayotte's got him going. But Jason, I've got to ask you, what's your prediction for this series? Do you think UNO can sweep? Do you think we get swept? Do you think it's a split? What do you think is going to happen against Colorado College coming up here in a couple of weekends?
Well, I can tell you we need a sweep, but I don't know that we'll get it. I think that particularly the balance of the attack from the forwards to the defense is going to be problematic for us. Um, Carroll College has three defenders that are in double digits for points. Andrews and Burkholder are both up there, and Burkholder is a freshman. And so this is a team that is generating more from their back end than we've seen them generate in the past. And, it creates a problem for teams, particularly on the penalty kill where they've got more space to operate up there. So I think we're gonna have to make some adjustments. I think we're gonna have to play a style that's um, disruptive with those guys. But they don't have the standouts. Like they don't have guys that I would look at and say like they're just dangerous if they ever have the puck. It's just they're balanced, and we need to be more balanced than they are.
So, Jason, what was your pick on that? Did you pick in a split?
Split. I'm gonna pick a split.
Okay, Jason has got a split. Any
You gonna make
prediction
me do
on?
Friday, Saturday, or no?
Yeah, since Bridget has made me do that the past 4 weekends, I'm going to ask you, UNO going to win Friday, Saturday
Well,
in the
I
three
think
on?
we lose Friday, win Saturday, because that seems to be our MO is we get a little lost on what we need to do on Friday, and we'll find a way to ping it out on Saturday.
You want to predict whether it's going to be in regulation or that 3-on-3 overtime?
I'm like I want to see overtime, but we're chasing them. It needs to be regulation. How about this? We'll do an overtime loss on Friday to shock people, and then we'll do a regulation win on Saturday.
Okay, there you go. We got Jason to pick 4 out of 6 conference points on the weekend. I like that idea. I'll be a little bit more optimistic. I'm going to say UNO is able to put everything together like they did against Minnesota Duluth. UNO needs these conference points to stay in the hunt, stay in the race. And we didn't even touch on this, but the fact of the matter is UNO sitting on the outside looking in of the pairwise rankings. So we need to continue to have positive momentum against these teams that are ahead of us in the pairwise rankings, like Colorado College. So, yep, I'm going to say we win both games, hoping for a great crowd during the weekend, which I'm sure that Mike West and company will deliver to Baxter Arena. So it should be fun. Love to see all of you out there at Baxter Arena. And I'm sure that they will be running a variety of promos for that series. So I'll be sure to check online for that. If you can't come to the games will air locally on the radio on 1290 AM or on the Varsity Network app anywhere. Mike Valancourt and Terry Leahy will, of course, have the call, and you can watch the games online on NCHC.TV. And of course, be sure to follow Mavpuck on our various social media channels. You can find links to those at mavpuck.com, as well as back episodes of this podcast, which we encourage you to watch and we encourage you to listen to, and we encourage you to subscribe. But until next time, Jason, go Mavs.
Go Mavs.